Thank you all for attending this morning. Great to have you here. You're going to hear some things that you need to hear but might not exactly like to hear. Fact of the matter is that cyber is a bigger risk than fire. Everyone wants to ensure that every dollar and cent in their office or at their home is insured if there's a fire, if there's a flood, thunderstorm, whatever it might be. But the fact of the matter is that businesses especially are much more at threat at cyber risk. So today we're going to have a presentation, Gerald and I. It's actually the second time we've presented to BNI Face about cyber risks. We did a presentation a little while ago that was a little bit more, fact-based. We're going to try to give you some tips and some information that you can then take away and arm in your business. You might even call it Rush Hour 2. Gerald and I. Jackie Chow and Chris Bush Tucker. Is that zero preparation if I thought of that on the drive-in? Tristan Curry. In the past, I was of TJC Risk Management. I spent 5 years in insurance employed for Aust Insurance. I had 3 years in business for myself and recently sold my business to Intertrade Insurance Services, of which Warwick is in attendance supporting me this morning. We do general business insurance broking. That is anything right from property insurance, is your main business interruption, public liability, professional indemnity, any kind of professional risks that you would more often than not have in your business. Gerald?
All right, so I'm Gerald, owner and directors of Xeno IT. We've been going on for a very long time. We're based at Signanans. Should update my BNI records. We look after pretty much all sort of business that needs and run a computer for their business. We look after all sort of industry, primarily professional service, hospitals, ASX listed companies, but we enjoyed looking after SMEs. We're now sort of branching out to clients outside Sydney and even New Zealand, so our help desk is now 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Question for you all. Have you or anyone that you know experienced a cyber attack or some kind of cyber threat? This can be anything from a dodgy email, this can be a website pop-up link. More popularly these days, invoices that are generated on someone else's behalf. It's quite a popular event these days. The cyber risk space is growing. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and more often than not coming from areas of the world that you wouldn't really expect. Areas in Africa, areas in Russia, and the chances of getting this money back once it's stolen, slim to none.
Okay, so since 2016, when Tristan and I did our presentation, I thought I would just give everyone some updated stats. So ransomware, of course, has been on the headline every now and then. So it now accounts for $5 billion in a single year of 2017. That is a 15 times increase compared to last time we spoke. There's a few high-profile victims: FedEx, Nissan, Hitachi, NHS, Cadbury, to name a few, but also cloud services too. So Microsoft is saying they have about 20,000 attempts hacked every day. Facebook is about 15,000 every day. Dropbox is about 6,000 every day. And not to mention Yahoo. Since 2013, they had about 3 billion email accounts, username and password stolen. Okay, so Australia, I'll quickly run through those. It now is costing us about $1 billion a year. In a recent survey, it's actually ranked at the third largest risk to business after your expenses and cash flow. And the typical damage is range from about $2,000 to $20,000 on average. But unfortunately, not many of us are willing to spend much money to protect ourselves. So I'll quickly run through the type of attacks relevant to SME. I'm going to skip these because I'm sure you see plenty of these good looking emails that looks pretty legit. I'll also skip this one. CEO pretending that, Bruce, can you play this invoice for me? But more sophisticated attack that we're now seeing is first start off with a very legit looking emails from 365 asking you to maybe reset your password or reactivate something. It can be Microsoft, it can be Google, it can be Dropbox, it can be anything. But the whole idea is to get your username and password first. And then what they now do is there's now do two things. Number one, they will quickly go into your email, find a most recent invoice or something, and see if they can get away sending out a new invoice. But what we are also seeing is now they're sitting in your computer, going through your data and just stealth mode for 1 month, up to 4 months, just to get to know you. All your incoming emails, all your outbound emails, and then they will launch something. Okay, the other popular attacks we're also seeing are SMEs, mainly professional service. It can be just me at home sending an email to Maria about, oh Maria, I want to buy a house. Here's a link from the agent. Can you have a look? It can also be, Lisa, I've got an employment contract. Can you have a look? And that's all they're trying to do now, is getting very targeted. The second type of attack, a supply chain attack. So in January, my team was very busy looking after a tourist company. We were identified and we spoke to insurance companies, and turns out it's a supply chain attack because they have access to a lot of large hotels. And we're going through the insurance now, and we're happy to say that after 3 weeks, everything's gone. But equally, it can be creative agencies who have access to hundreds and thousands of websites. It can also be, last year's example, or 2016 example, Domino Pizza gave out millions of records through a supplier.
So who of you in the room here uses the G suite of products? Google Mail, Google Drive, Google Calendar, anything like that? That's about 50%, maybe a little bit more in one way or another. Google has no storage facilities here in Australia. That makes you directly, unfavoured by the Australian government, because you need to know for certain where all of your data is stored, and especially being onshore. This is new legislation that's coming in, along with a lot of other changes to the Privacy Act of 1988 that has now been revised and amended as of 2017. The main changes to this legislation are around notification of breaches. Any businesses with a turnover greater of $3 million are now targeted by this legislation. If you have a cyber breach in any way, shape or form, you are obligated to notify the commissioner within 30 days or within reasonable time of this breach. It also involves notifying your clients, customers, suppliers, anyone that might be affected. Variants to this rule: if you manage any personal data, being credit card information, health card information, tax file numbers, anything that can be perceived as sensitive or valuable, this rule applies to you, regardless of the $3 million turnover. What is a data breach? Data breaches can be defined specifically around unauthorized access or permission to your servers, and more specifically, a loss. There needs to be a data loss, data deletion, or financial loss on your behalf or on the behalf of one of your clients. The legislation is fairly new. 22nd of February is when this kicks in. It's managed by an Australian authority. There have been specific parties issued with the authority to manage this task. Fines obviously going along with it. If you do suffer a data breach and it's seen that you are negligent with how you operated your business, you don't have antivirus or firewall, or let alone at all up to date, whatever, you can be hit with fines from these parties, up to $50,000. Cyber insurance is not a new thing. It's been around for many years. In the US, it's been around for about 15 plus years. In Australia, there's been reasonable insurance policies for about 5 years now. These policies have a lot of different sections to cover, as you can see up on the screen here. which I'll briefly discuss. Security, privacy, liability refers to third parties taking action against you for their loss or for your negligence. The privacy regulatory defense costs is what I touched on just a moment ago. That talks about fines and penalties being charged to you. Multimedia liability refers to content and defamation related to your website, to your social media pages. Data recovery and loss of business. This is something that not all cyber policies will have, but it's something I highly suggest because it relates to the loss of business income that you will receive. If your servers are down for 48 hours or greater, you are eligible to receive your business income back until it's rectified. Customer support, reputational expenses. It's about your customers being kept up to date and basically in the loop with what's going on with their data. Once you have that loss, you notify the commissioner, you notify all parties involved, and they want to know the steps that you are taking to rectify this issue. Data extortion is fairly simple there. If you have a ransomware attack specifically, and they ask for $5,000 or 5,000 Bitcoins, so a few extra dollars than that, it pays for that expense. You're paying them to not wipe all of the data on your computer systems. If your servers or your backups are plugged into your computer at the time of that loss, then they're as good as gone as well. Some people have been known to just pull the power cord out of the wall, which can work if you're a lucky one, but I'd say to maybe speak to Gerald about better systems and processes. Cyber insurance is a standalone product, and it's something I suggest to all my customers. But there are other ways to take this cover. There's endorsements to existing policies, professional indemnity, information technology liability, management liability. These are policies that are much more popular in Australia. They're carried by most of the businesses in this room, and there are ways to endorse these policies with $100,000 of cover just so that you have something and a little bit of peace of mind. It can be as low as $200, and I know that some people in this room have taken that. Generally only covers third-party liabilities only, being your customers, your clients' expenses, but some can include some of the data recovery or the forensic costs in cleaning up your own computer systems.
Okay, computers. Obviously, the basic protection is given, antivirus, backup. Yesterday I spoke to a business. They said, oh yeah, backup, that was a year ago. Okay, so that's a very good prospect for me. So is it about a good password? You know, it's not about 20, 30 characters password. Yes, it's good to have, a phases or, more than words, but really is how often do you change that password. It's no good if you have the password saved on your browser. In fact, a friend of mine had his his computer hacked, and then the guy ran a tool called Web Browse Passview, and it shows all the password that you've saved on your browser. And then the guy went shopping, eBay, bought phones, etc. Password manager, a lot of people knows about it, but do they know actually how to use it? It's good that the password manager save all the password for you, but what if the crook get into your computer? So you should set up a timeout. You should also think about a two-factor authentication. So two-factor authentications is pretty much everything that any cloud services that have 2FA, I'll add it. So in other words, it will generate a token on your phone, and it's a one-time password. And with that and your password, you're fairly secure.
This is a website that I've come to learn in the last few months. Have I been pwned? I guess you might pronounce that differently depending on what age group you are. This website lets you add your email address and see the websites or the amount of times that it's been jeopardized, stolen. Pretty confronting. Go have a play in that later on today and then give me a call about cyber insurance.
All right, so we'll wrap it up. I forgot to acknowledge our visitors as well. The gentleman who encrypt email, huge fan of that. Yep. So that you should speak to him if you're involved in sending out a lot of emails as well, and you're concerned about the legitimacies of the receiver, who's concerned about the legitimacies of those emails. So a good referral for us would be a business that's 4 to 100 staff. I have clients who are smaller, I have clients who are bigger. but 4 to 100 is good fit for us. And especially this just have sensitive data that they want to protect, but more knowing with the legislation, you want to protect yourself. You don't want to get a ransomware and then pay the crook and then have to tell the clients that I've been hacked. Because the law now requires you to acknowledge and inform all parties involved.
Yeah, specific industries, financial services, the technology space, most definitely healthcare. Healthcare have been one of the oldest and most targeted industries, especially in Australia. And it can be just your local GP that these overseas hackers can target, or sometimes it's just luck of the draw who opens that myshopping.com pop-up on the side of the page. But these industries specifically hold sensitive data, and reiterating that fact, holding credit card information or taking credit card information, any personal identifiers, if you happen to photocopy driver's license, Medicare, passports, anything like that, it's just a no-brainer. You need to speak to someone about how that data is managed, making sure it's managed properly, managed locally, encrypted, everywhere along the way.
That's it, Q&A.
Thank you all for listening.
Thanks, Tristan and Gerald. So if you could keep on standing up here, we might take a few questions from the field, maybe 3 or 4, depending on time. So Kelvin, you're first up.
So if I've got my business completely on Google Suite,
Actually, Tristan's data is a bit old. End of last year, Google has put in their own data center.
I thought I was in Australia. In Australia. Yeah.
Thank you, Gerald.
Right.
Good news.
So if we implement 2FA, and use the Google Suite for everything from Google Docs through to calendars through to spreadsheets and whatnot on their system, is that enough to say we're pretty secure? Isn't Google a authority in terms of combating cyber attacks?
Yeah, definitely they're putting good systems, but then it also comes good practice from your end as well. So yes, 2FA is great, but how many people know 2FA? Not many. So definitely do that, and then it's just a matter of your firewalls, your backup, and then your antivirus, and then it's also training on your staff as well. Yeah, encrypting the email as well. Yeah,
Encrypting emails.
Yeah, but yeah, sorry, I also forgot to mention as well. Staff is also a dangerous problem as well. So it can be disgruntled staff. It can also be staff who are just not very knowledgeable and just open every email that they received. Then there's no protection that I can give you.
Gerald, another IT question. As you know, I do save all my passwords to my browser, and I will change that. However, one thing I've been very careful not to do is to save my credit card details to my computer. And my 6-year-old son managed to find the Fibber game, which is like the YouTube sensation for 6-year-olds, and proceed to cart and purchase, and my credit card details were saved in Amazon, which I haven't purchased anything for in like 18 months. Is there an easy way to clear all that information from Google?
So normally a hacker, when they get into a computer, they'll check PayPal. Because the PayPal username and password is saved, and that's actually how my friend got a few things purchased on his behalf. So I would probably check that first, and then just double check whether the credit card is being saved. Obviously, there are products out there that you can create histories and cache in your computers, every day, or even when you close the browser, it should create everything. That is just a matter of ticking that box.
So you can get rid of it. It's not there forever.
Yeah, definitely.
I got a mic. Can I speak?
And if you stand
just
up.
a question in the shape of a comment. My dad has a rather large professional service business in France and has been a victim of ransomware. Had about half of his business paralyzed for 2 weeks, and now he spends, I think, 400k Aussie equivalent a year in data hosting and ransomware protection. And just a comment, it came from employee behavior. So downloading something that looks amazing or very normal to them. So my advice to all business in the room is to speak to these guys, because the cost of the insurance has nothing to do with the real cost of what can happen to your business. Because imagine your business, 2 weeks plus the repercussions of that. It's huge. So,
Hello, I have a question. Can you just comment on, is there a difference between Apple Mac and a PC in relation to the risk of attack by viruses and malware?
Very good question. It's fair to say that Windows do attract a bigger populations of hackers. However, guess what? The amount of vulnerabilities per year in the last 5 years, Apple is always higher than Microsoft, because there are so many holes that they haven't patched. The difference between Microsoft and Apple is that Microsoft is under pressure from the government and various agencies to patch their systems. So they have actually done a lot of good work. So for example, the ransomware back in last year in March, they released a patch. But then a lot of companies can't be bothered installing the patch. And then they got the attack. And then the media kicks in and go, you know, and a lot of people just think about these things. And also, Mac actually are starting to get a lot of vulnerabilities and attacks specifically for Mac, because a lot of Mac computers are unpatched.
All right, we've probably got one more question left in us. Omar, your hand was seen.
Thank you. Gerald, another tech question. If you open up a dodgy attachment on a PC or Mac, it could be disastrous.
Yep.
What if you open a similar type of attachment on a mobile device, whether that be
Good
Android
question. Yep.
or iPad or something
Yep.
similar?
So I actually tell my clients, if you're not sure and you just want to take a peek, use your phone. Ideally, an iPhone, not an Android. Android, it's a lot more open source, and obviously there's more holes in it. iPhone is actually surprisingly very tight. So yeah, iPhones is good for
Test mechanism.
yeah. Just even hold, you know how you can hold the button and then just preview. Yeah, and also the address as well. Once you click on it, it opens up the address. If it doesn't look legit, then just close it.
All right, fantastic. How about a round of applause for these two professionals? And there's a fair few questions I'm sure that you'll ask yourself.